Hello, thank you for meeting with me today to help me go through the equality impact assessment thingy. Sorry, I'm not really a fan of management speak and paperwork.
No problem at all. That's why I'm here. We've tried to design this to be as unbureaucratic and simple to use as possible, and I'm happy to help out.
Okay, so I get the basic idea that this is supposed to ensure that anything we do in the church meets the needs of everyone and doesn't accidentally exclude or disadvantage any particular group. And I don't think we're doing that, but I'm not sure I've filled out all the bits of the form correctly. We're planning a Christmas carol service at my local church, which I'll be leading, and we're going to advertise around the community and invite as many people as we can. One of the church members is going to dress up as Santa, and we're going to bless our community by giving out presents to the children. There'll be carols, but not any heavy theology, and we just want it to be as welcoming as possible. We are the church sharing a time that is really important to us with our neighbours and the community.
Sounds wonderful. I hope it goes really well.
Right, so I've read through the first couple of pages about why this is important, and like it says on page 3, we're doing it nice and early. We've had the initial discussion about what we want to do and done some provisional planning, but we've not yet gone into the details of the plans yet.
Well, that's good. Hopefully this exercise will help you put some of those details in place.
Right, then on page 3, it mentions a 5-step process. So the first one is having an agreed purpose, which I think we've got. But then the second one is about gathering evidence. It mentions feedback from community groups, data monitoring, exit interviews, etc. I'm just trying to arrange a carol service. I don't need to start doing surveys with people in my community first, do I? We haven't got the time or the skill set to be doing that.
No, not at all. This isn't designed to be burdensome or to put obstacles in the way of people doing anything. But you should use the data and information you do have. So for those projects in the church that do have employees and volunteers in significant roles, then they should be doing exit interviews and should be bearing those in mind when planning new events. So the question is more, what information do you have? Who can you talk to?
Well, there's a couple of community groups that hire the church hall. We were going to advertise the event to them, but I suppose we could ask them now and get their input into what they'd like, what things might stop them coming if they want to, so that we can plan around them.
Yeah, that's the idea. So it's something you're doing with your community, not just for them.
And then that links on to number 3, to consult those who might be impacted. I don't think anything we do is going to get in their way, but I was thinking we might need to move some of the tables to be stored in a different place the week before. Otherwise, we'll never be able to set up in time in the morning. So I might just check with the play group where they're planning on putting them to ensure that they won't be in the way. These are basically just good principles for planning things anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, basically. Though step 4 is where it gets into equality issues, where you have to fill in pages 5 and 6.
Oh yeah, those boxes things. That was a bit much for me. I couldn't write in those boxes, so I've just written out longhand in my notebook. But I've used all of the same headings. That's fine, isn't it?
Yes, of course, it's the process that matters.
Okay, it starts with age. Now we're going to have presents for the children. I was going to divide them up by age, so we had presents recommended for different ages. They'll all be wrapped, you see, but the elf can get the age of the child from the parent and then give Father Christmas the right present to give to the child, so we know they'll all get an appropriate present. But I'm not going to divide them up into boys presents and girls presents. I don't believe in any of that gender socialization, teaching children they're expected to be a certain way. So I've put that down as that's inclusive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's inclusive. And it also means you're not going to exclude any children who aren't comfortable with the labels boy or girl. So you can include that in the gender reassignment section of the form. Gender reassignment isn't really the best language, to be honest. It's just the way things are phrased in the Equality Act. But it is important to check we aren't dividing people up into boys and girls unnecessarily and then ending up excluding people.
Right, that's good, thanks. But then on the age bit, we were thinking of doing the presents up to about 16, but then we're not going to have presents for the adults. That's okay, isn't it? We won't get in trouble with the church for age discrimination, will we?
No, of course, that will be fine. Equality doesn't mean treating people in exactly the same way all the time. You can respond to different people differently.
Yes, because it's not like the adults aren't getting anything. There's going to be loads of cake and food and drinks, so people will still come and find a gift and a warm welcome. Like you say, it's not about treating everyone exactly the same. It's about equity, isn't it? Treating people according to their needs so that everyone equally benefits.
Yes, exactly that. Equal benefit and equal opportunity, not equal treatment in every exact way.
Okay, so then the other thing I've put down is that we were going to ask the children in the church to help us. I don't know exactly what kind of presents would work best for each age group, but we've got some older children who are really considerate, so they might help identify which gifts would work best for which age group. Is that okay?
Yes, exactly. That links back to the previous section about involving everyone in decision making. It's not just the impact of what we do that should be equitable, but we want inclusive decision making as well to involve everyone, not just a core group of similar people who decide everything for everyone all the time.
Okay, that makes sense, but I don't want to go to the only person in the congregation I know is gay and ask them to help me fill out the sexual orientation box. That doesn't sound very inclusive.
No, people don't expect heterosexual people to speak for all straight people. It can get really wearing for people who are LGBT plus to be asked all of the time.
Okay, I can't think though of any negative impact for people who are LGBTQ plus, or for those who are married or in a civil partnership. So I'm struggling filling out those boxes. We have an inclusive language guide that we use for worship, so I can use that for this event too. Is that enough to put in those boxes?
Probably. It's not that you have to have lots to fill up every box, just that you have to have thought about all these possible issues and listen and remain aware in case anything comes up while you're planning it.
Okay, that's reassuring. Now then, it says religious belief. We're really aware that we're inviting people who aren't necessarily Christian to come, and we're telling them that it's just a way to share Christmas together with them, so it's not going to be preachy. The last thing we want is to invite them and then not do what we said we would. We want them to experience God's love by the welcoming environment, not because we lecture them about it. So I'm going to write the service very carefully, thanking God, but not banging on about it.
Sounds great.
Okay, but it's not going to be like that for everything, is it? Some things, most things we do in the church are expressly religious. So we can't ensure it's perfectly equal for every religious belief. We will be explicitly advocating one particular religion, especially in our evangelical work. So then what do we put on the form?
Yes, but that's totally okay. We're allowed to spread the gospel. The box is there just to get us to think if we're disadvantaging people in some way. For example, not all of our administrative staff in the church are Christian, so we wouldn't want to run a project that employed them, but then disadvantage them in some way. Like if we had a weekly prayer meeting, but then people stayed around to chat, and that's when all the important decisions were made. So the Christian staff ended up being treated more favourably than the non-Christian staff.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, or with your event, you wouldn't want to publicise it in such a way that only Christian children in your community got the presents.
Oh, no, that'd be dreadful. That's the exact opposite of what we want to do. We want to invite everyone.
So the box is just to prompt that kind of thinking. You don't need to worry about filling up every box every time.
Okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this. So going back to what you were saying about publicising the event, we haven't decided yet whether to pay to have leaflets delivered or for church members to deliver them themselves around about where they live. I got a quote from a leaflet distribution company, but I don't think we can afford it, to be honest. We aren't saying that we have to do that to ensure everyone gets a leaflet, or else it's not equal, are we?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I suppose what I should do is think about where the members live. Lots of us have offered to help, though of course not everyone can. And those who've offered to help are pretty diverse in terms of age and socio-economic group and so on. We're pretty representative of the community we live in. So if I think about where we all live, we've got that area covered, that area covered. No, hang on, it's not going to work. We all live up this end of town and none of us live down by the river. And that estate is different in terms of socioeconomic makeup and ethnicity from the other parts of town. So if we just deliver where we all live, we won't be giving equal opportunity to all the groups in our community. perhaps if I go back to the leaflet company and get a quote for them to just do that neighbourhood, then we'll do the other parts of town as best as we could. We can't guarantee to invite everyone, but at least we won't be disadvantaging like one particular group and assuming, you know, it's a bit cheaper. We'll probably be able to afford it if it's just like one estate. Yeah.
I think you're getting the hang of this. And one of the benefits of doing this kind of assessment is it can help you to know where to spend your budget for maximum impact.
The other thing I put under socioeconomic is to think about the kind of presents that we're giving out. We want it to be something good and not just like a cheap like party bag. But I was also thinking we don't want to make it too expensive, so it's more than some families can afford to give their children themselves. That could come across as really insensitive, so we need to pitch it about right.
Yes, that's a good thought.
Okay, just looking through, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was disability.
Okay.
So we're going to move the chairs around for the carols, so we're in more like of a semicircle and it feels more communal and not just in rows. But I don't want to ruin the access, as I know that's planned quite carefully for Sunday mornings.
So what kinds of things are you concerned about?
Well, we've got a hearing loop for the sound system, but I don't really know how it works. I know that it works better in some part of the church than others, so I don't want to move the chairs away from the bit that people with hearing aids would need to sit. So I was thinking I need to check that out, don't I? And one of our stewards understands all of the sound system, so if I check with them before I move the chairs, then I can take that into account, can't I?
Yes, that makes sense.
And I also need to check that everyone can still see the screen okay. And we've got a section at the side with no chairs that's accessible for wheelchair users. And we haven't had anyone coming regularly who uses a wheelchair, but the whole point of this event is to get people who don't usually come to attend. So I need to make sure that's still accessible, don't I? And I'll be moving where the aisle is, so I need to measure and ensure a wheelchair can still fit down it fine.
I really think you're getting the hang of this, you know.
Is there anything else I ought to bear in mind when moving around furniture?
Well, one thing to consider is that there are seats where it's easy to exit. For some survivors of abuse or those who've experienced post-traumatic stress syndrome, it's very important for them to sit at the end of a row or somewhere where they know they can get out quickly if they need to. Even if they never do, the fact that they can allows them to feel safe in the space. So if you're moving things into more of a semicircle, just something to bear in mind that you still have end of row seats with easy access to get out, especially if you have regular members of the congregation who prefer the same seat for that reason, so they can still find a safe seat.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. There's loads of people in our congregation who like to sit in the same seat every week. I'm not going to ask everyone if they want a safe seat for that reason, but I could just casually announce every week that we'll be moving the seats around, you know, in all the weeks before the carol service. That way everyone will know, and anyone who needs a safe seat will be able to come early and find one and not arrive at the usual time and expect to find their usual seat.
That's a really great idea.
Okay, well, this has been like really productive exercise. There's loads of little things that we'd probably have thought of if we hadn't done this form, but I doubt we'd have thought of all of them. And I think I've got a better plan now for how to allocate the budget to reach the most people too. So it's been really beneficial. I think I filled in every box of the form. Thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I really hope the carol service goes well.
I'm sure it will. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.